The Dead. In the time before the primordial war, there was no ghosts. It was not until the death of the primordials that the underworld came to be, and the stubborn souls of dead mortals gathered there instead of following the dictates of creation and re-entering the cycle of reincarnation. As the living realized that some dead souls remained interested in the living world, and were in a unique position to help them, ancestor cults sprang up across creation like noxious weeds. Even at the height of their power, the Immaculate Order was never able to entirely extinguish ancestor worship. Now, with the appearance of the abyssal Exalted, reverence of the dead has become a significant religion in many nations. For the most part, the dead do not find the lands of the living very welcoming. Ghosts are immaterial and cannot affect the living world. Even the abyssals, who are not quite dead, find creation uncomfortable. But there are some places where the dead and the living reside together in a strange harmony. The Underworld. The land of the dead is no place for the living, but with the existence of Shadowlands, there are occasionally ignorant, mad, or desperate people who pass alive into the underworld. Those few who return to speak of their travels are usually marred by their encounters with the dead. Whether it's a ghostly, unhealing pallor or mad wanderings of the mind, the living carry the scars of their journey for the rest of their lives. For the living, traveling in the underworld is fraught with peril. Without powerful and unique spells or charms, no ghost will mistake a living soul for a dead one, and the taste of living blood and living passion is a temptation few ghosts can resist. In addition, the underworld is the true home of the abyssals and their dark masters, and they are even more powerful there than in creation. The dead have their own alliances in the underworld, and the rulers there fear neither the princes of the earth nor the gods of Yushan. Even the food of the dead is dangerous to the living, as it can tie the souls of the living to the land of the dead. Those who eat the food of the dead are quite likely to become ghosts when they die. Based on what's been gleaned from those few travelers and the unreliable tales of the dead, it seems the underworld is a strange, dark reflection of creation. There are dark and gloomy eastern forests, bitter northern snowscapes, southern deserts, and glassy black shadows of the great western ocean. Even the Blessed Isle has its own dark reflection, supposedly home to the most powerful of the dead and the greatest city in all of the underworld. The Isle of Stygia, as the dead name it, has never been seen by the living. The dead claim that within the isle there are darker secrets than even they dare mention. Within the underworld there is a death beyond death, a death even ghosts fear. It is not the sweet forgetfulness of Lethe, but the annihilation of oblivion, the utter destruction of the soul. Centered within the eerie capital of the dead is a great wound, a dark abyss that falls forever into nothingness and oblivion. Madness rises from it like intoxicating smoke, creating nephraks and consuming the souls of those unfortunate enough to fall or be thrown into it. It is from this place that the Death Lords draw their strength, and here they kneel down in servitude to something more terrible and greater than themselves. Shadowlands. Scattered across creation except on the Blessed Isle, Shadowlands are places where the underworld and creation touch. Here, the living and the dead can meet on equal footing and engage in everything from commerce to affairs of passion. Stepping across a border into a Shadowland is unmistakable. There are many people who turn back after that first step, and most animals will not willingly cross into a Shadowland either. The grass underfoot is lank, pale, and vaguely greasy to the touch. The trees, if there are any at all, are scrawny, the bark as black as pitch or bone white, and the leaves a dull brownish green. The sun seems to dim as if hidden behind a pale mist. Even the air seems still, hushed, and less lively. There are no birds, save for rations, vultures, and the occasional owl, and the few other animals in a Shadowlands are sickly-looking and skittish. At night, it only gets worse. Shadowlands become part of the underworld at night, and should a traveller pass the border at night, he will not return to creation, but instead the underworld. The Shadowland moon is heavy, huge, and red-tinted. The stars seem strange, like watchful eyes, and a land that is quiet by day seems full of whispers by night. Buildings appear illuminated by greenish lanterns, while flowers, unseen in the daylight, bloom, releasing a sweet narcotic mist. There are often more people present in a Shadowland at night, ghosts who have come to do business. The largest Shadowlands fall under the authority of a Death Lord or an Abyssal Death Knight. Their huge pagodas tower in the center of their Shadowlands like sleeping monsters, red glass glowing like distant fires, and black lacquered pillars carved with funeral glyphs. There is a large independent Shadowland in Sijan, however, where the Mortician's Order holds sway instead, and there are many others too small to draw the attention of the Death Lords, scattered all over creation. During the day, living creatures leaving a Shadowland naturally enter the land of the living, while ghosts enter the underworld. At night, however, all beings are drawn into the underworld if they cross a Shadowland's border. The living inhabitants of a Shadowland are touched by the underworld, even before death. They have the look of ghosts, pale and thin. Few children are born there. Lives are short, and leprosy and consumption and other such diseases are common. All who dwell in Shadowlands are familiar with ghosts, and may have ghostly lovers, customers, or masters. Death cults and ancestor worship are the only permitted religions for both the living and the dead in Shadowlands. Death Lords establish official death cults, which they head, and membership is required. In most of these cults, the living are treated as misguided, low-status worshippers. Death is the true initiation into these cults. All death cults preach a final, blissful union in the underworld, once all life itself is dead. Ghosts. The citizens of the underworld and frequent travelers to Shadowlands, ghosts are the souls of the dead who have escaped the wheel of reincarnation. Ghosts are tangible in the underworld, for that is their natural home, and they can exist in a Shadowland as well, but they are intangible in creation and cannot remain in the lands of the living for long. Ghosts appear as they did in life, though lacking any infirmities they might have once possessed, with the clothes of their station, any grave goods they were buried with, and the marks of death visible upon them. Many ghosts are beautiful in a distant, chilling way. The violet tinge of a drowning, or the second red mouth of a cut throat, are surprisingly easy to overlook. Ghosts who are beginning to fade away into Lethe's embrace are quiet, pallid, almost translucent, while those who are recently dead or clinging with stubborn will to their existence might look almost alive, full of certainty and lifelike eagerness. Ghosts are vulnerable to the natural pull of reincarnation, the forgetfulness of Lethe that brings them back into the cycle of life and death. They cling to physical mausoleums raised in their honor and to the offerings of their living descendants to hold fast in the face of Lethe. Burial mounds, plaques of honor, and memorial songs in their name provide ghosts with the essence and fetters to anchor them in the underworld. Skilled ghosts are able to manipulate their dead essence to allow them to breach the barrier between the living and the dead, communicating with their descendants during ancestral rites, or even physically entering the living world. The power of the dead over the living can make the ghosts valued allies or tricky enemies. Ancestor worship is a significant social and political force in many parts of creation, despite the efforts of the Immaculate Order to stamp it out, or of the Death Lords to turn it to their purposes. Many ghosts encountered in the living world have at least a small circle of descendants propitiating them, and such worship gives a ghost a few motes of essence per day. In return, however, the ghost must provide at least occasional service to her living family. Blood. There is power in blood. The source of life itself can call up demons and ghosts, seal oaths, and stand witness. Summoners, exorcists, and sorcerers of all types know the power blood holds in creation, and many magics make use of that power. Human sacrifice is usually reserved for the most desperate or darkest rituals, and it is also the best source of power for the dead. Mortal blood provides the most essence for demons and ghosts, and for ghosts, animal blood can also be used. Either way, the blood must be fresh and shed in a ritual manner. Blood spilled during combat or by accident is useless. The ancestor cults. In many areas of creation, ancestor worship is a reasonable and common practice. Everyone admits that ghosts exist. Even immaculate monks or adherents of other religions that argue a swift reincarnation is the best thing that can happen to a dead person don't deny that ghosts exist and watch over their descendants. Indeed, the sheer common sense of the whole concept is one of the foundation stones of many ancestor cults, with the truth being the other. Many of the living pay honor to their ancestors, making offerings to their ghosts, or even going so far as to communicate with them for advice and protection. The dead are glad to protect their living descendants, and in many parts of creation, this relationship is a symbiotic one.